Hello, my name's Kristian. I am a descendant of Crawford and McGregor clans from the lowlands of Scotland and grew up here in Sydney, Balmain. My background in sport, I used to play like a lot of competitive soccer and basketball and stuff like that at school. Found that since leaving school, I quit a lot of team sports and competitive sports like that to focus on studies and career development, I guess. Still kept fitness up with a lot of solo sports, I guess, like a lot of surfing and cycling, but nothing ever competitive until about 2010. I did a lot of mountain bike riding when I was living in Darwin, like to and from work in 2008 and 9, but nothing ever in race format until late 2010, started 2011. I started riding with a couple of guys from work, and yeah, that's kind of how I got into, I guess, competitive mountain bike racing. My first mountain bike race was a 24-hour endurance race in a team of 4 people. So while I didn't have to ride 24 hours myself, thankfully, it was still a massive physical and probably more so mental effort for me to try and figure out after sort of half a day of riding on and off, why was I paying money to ride through the Cohen Forest in Canberra, and it was drizzling, and to keep pushing through that barrier, the pain barrier, and also just the mental, I guess, anguish of struggling to reason, why on earth am I doing this and paying somebody to organise this for me to do, is strangely very appealing. You spend a lot of time on your own, like not talking to people when you are doing these races, so you have a lot of time to think. You have a lot of time to think about your character, I think, your strengths and your weaknesses, and that's what's very appealing to me about mountain bike, and especially endurance racing as a sport. Mainly the guys that I ride with are from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander backgrounds, and I found that without it being actually structured since 2010, riding through places like the Ku-ring-gai National Park and the Royal National Park down in Heathcote and stuff, and most recently up at the Oaks Fire Trail in the base of the Blue Mountains, is that without having any structure, I guess these guys have been sharing a bit about the traditional lands that we're riding on, whether that be explaining traditional landowners and I guess what some of the lands were used for pre-colonisation, has been a really enriching part of riding with Ben and Nathan especially. So that's definitely drawn me to the project, which, as I guess a non-Indigenous person, some people might be going, what the hell is he doing in this project or team? But I think if, non-Indigenous and Indigenous people, we live together here on these lands, and it's important for non-Indigenous people that are riding, especially, to know the lands that you're travelling across, and I guess not be ignorant. And if you have the opportunity to learn, and that's something that the Indigenous Mountain Bike Project, I guess, offers, is to really embrace that, and then obviously pass that on to my other mates if I ever go riding in these places as well, just to let them know, I guess, where we're riding through. I guess what I want to get out of it is to keep learning more about Indigenous culture and land and stuff that I grow up on, and then travel along, whether that be through riding, racing, family trips and stuff. I spent a lot of time as a kid doing a lot of camping with my dad and his parents and stuff, so it's interesting looking back and seeing, while I've done heaps of camping, I've spent a lot of time out in a lot of different national parks around New South Wales and some in Queensland, is that I don't know a huge amount about the the land owners and I guess the use of that land from an Indigenous perspective. And I'm just starting to like learn that now, which I really appreciate, and hopefully can, you know, make sure that when my kids and that go out camping, when I'm an old dad, they get to know that rather than us looking out for signs and stuff like that. Maybe it's more about what I don't bring. Nothing. I'm amazing. I bring a lot of.
It's going in.
Are we rolling? I don't know. I think I've got a. What do I bring to the Indigenous mountain biking? I guess that thirst for knowledge. You know, I think I've got a lot of patience, and I am keen to learn about Indigenous Australia. As a rider, I guess I've got a lot to learn in terms of more strength development. I think in terms of like endurance and not so much tackling downhill terrain. If I am to say, I guess what sort of rider my strengths are, definitely like prefer doing downhill. Even though I've had a few hairy little falls, I guess, but I do like the downhill stuff. Probably because you don't have to pedal, you just shoot down it and jump off X, Y and Z, but yeah, I do like the chase. I do like being pushed by the guys as well, so I'll encourage others, and I guess that I'm relatively new to the riding space, so hopefully I can share something with some of the new riders on the team that are starting out this coming fortnight down in Jervis Bay, down there in the south coast of New South Wales. I don't know, I've been riding a bike since I could, almost since I could walk. I had my first bike was a little Balmain Tigers BMX bike when I was living in Rozelle, and made some sweet jumps. But for me personally, like, I'll be 28 next week. In 2007, when I left New South Wales and moved to the Northern Territory, my main mode of transport to and from work and to work meetings and stuff was just push bikes, simply because I just didn't buy a car. But in doing that, I actually found like the environmental benefits and financial, like cost saving of riding a bike, and then the health benefits, it's threefold. And since moving back to Sydney in 2010, I have only just recently bought a car, but the only reason I bought a car is so that I could go mountain biking, and so that just sits there all week and doesn't get used. So I guess what draws me to riding bikes and stuff is, one, I don't like doing things slow, so I don't like bushwalking. I don't like taking my time doing stuff. I'm pretty ADHD or whatever you call it, hypo, so I'd rather speed through the bush, taking it in though. But definitely the environmental impact of cars and fossil fuels, and that does play a big factor.